Quick show of hands. How many folks are with carriers? Just raise your hands. Okay, great. Jeff, give me a final okay. We set? Great. My name is Jeff Mucci. I'm editorial director and CEO of RCR Wireless News, and you're in the Mavenir Systems presentation today. We're going to be focusing on making and saving money with 4G, specifically talking about the challenges, opportunities, and pragmatic solutions for competitive carriers. Today we're going to break the session down into two parts. The first one's going to be on MCS and the second one on voice over mobile broadband. Our first speaker is Madan Jagannath. Thank you for joining us today, VP of Marketing and Strategy for Mavenir Systems.
Thank you, Jeff. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to sunny Las Vegas. It's good to be back here in Las Vegas for another trade show. Happens about once a year or so. As Jeff said, there are a few things we'll cover off today. From an agenda standpoint, first I'll give you a brief overview of who we are, some of the things we're seeing happening in the market, the trends in the market, the opportunities we see, and then a couple of solutions that we think can help operators to really get into the next generation of services, the services over IP, 4G, and the fast 3G networks that are out there today. And along the way, there are two question and answer sessions we'll do after the first part and then at the end of the session. So first, introducing the company. Mavenir Systems has been around for about 7 years, since its founding in 2005. Today we have a global presence. In fact, we serve on the order of 9 of the top 20 mobile operators globally. So solutions deployed in the United States, where we serve 3 of the top 5, in Europe, where we serve 3 of the top 5, as well as members of the Competitive Carrier Association. Most recently, you would have seen that Metro PCS launched a voice over LTE on August 7th. We provided the IMS core and the voice over LTE telephony application server to Metro PCS. And Metro PCS has talked about that quite a bit, and I'm sure we'll be talking a bit more about that in the days to come. We also have launched a voice over Wi-Fi service with one of the member companies of the Competitive Carrier Association here in the United States, and that service works very well. And we'll talk about that a bit more as we go through the day. And then some of the other things you've seen here, including the first Rich Communications Suite contract that we have won for an operator in Europe. We have been recognized as one of the fastest growing companies in the United States. Mavenir Systems is headquartered in Richardson, Texas, so we are an American-based company operating globally. Now, in terms of what we're seeing in the market, with the market dynamics, what we're seeing really is that with the advent of HSPA and with the advent of smartphones, and especially with the advent of LTE, there is an acceleration of the disaggregation of the access layer of the network from the services layer of the network. So that, especially with the smartphones that are out there, we're seeing applications come in over the top, like WhatsApp and Skype and things like that, that are driving consumer behavior towards over-the-top services. Previously, all of the services came from the operator community. Voice was closely integrated from top to bottom in the network. Messaging, for short messaging, was closely integrated, MMS, closely integrated top to bottom. But now the access network is separate from the services network, and things like WhatsApp and other applications over the top can be delivered as easily over Wi-Fi as they can over the 3G or 4G broadband network, mobile broadband network. So we're seeing that disaggregation of the network. That's being driven to a large measure of the traffic that's going into the network. You know, Cisco has been projecting data traffic growth for a long time, and they're projecting the numbers that we're seeing up there. The long and short of it is that for operators to remain competitive in acquiring and keeping customers, there's a large amount of investment you have to make to enhance your networks while the revenue that you're getting is relatively flat. Voice is highly commoditized today, and voice minutes, the ARPU from voice minutes is going down. SMS is while the amount of traffic is increasing, the revenues from SMS is also declining. So the challenge that operators have globally, and you have those challenges as well, really is about, with flat revenues and increasing network cost, how do you have a sustainable business model for the future? And that's what we will talk about as we get into it today. So we're seeing from the trends, we're seeing that the smartphone adoption is actually proceeding much more quickly than many other technologies have been adopted in the past. You know, the iPhone was introduced in 2007, that's 5 years ago. Android came in 2008. The things that were there before that, the Windows, the early versions of Windows smartphones and the BlackBerry devices have very quickly been displaced by these two new platforms. And we're seeing no end of adoption to these things. Apple introduced the iPhone on Friday. They sold 5 million over the weekend. 5 million. That's a huge number for one weekend. And you know that with LTE in that phone, it will only drive greater consumption of data. Right? What we're also seeing is that the loyalty for consumers is moving away from the service provider to the application. Facebook, Twitter, whatever else is out there, it's the application. And whatever the access is, consumers are losing sight of the very essential work the service providers are doing. And part of the question that we have to answer as an industry is, how do you maintain the perception with your customers that you are the ones giving them the services that they really are looking for? From our perspective, there's a lot that over-the-top guys do, but we believe fundamentally that service providers will deliver a better service than the over-the-top guys can do. Right? You know, yes, there's over-the-top voice, but it's not integrated with a single number. It's not in one application. You have to download a separate application. It does not provide carrier gradeness in the service. There is no integration with E911, for example. And in the case of lawful intercept, for those of you that have to comply with, and every one of you in here has to comply with the legal requirements, CALIA requirements have to be implemented. Over-the-top guys don't have to worry about any of that, but then the service they provide is not as good as what you can provide. We see a large opportunity for operators with these networks to provide a better service for the end user, because of the assets you have with a single number, the integration of that single number, an embedded application that can provide quality of service into the LTE or HSPA network, even over Wi-Fi, the integration of a single number. You know, I was in Europe a couple of weeks ago, and I was carrying my favorite voice over Wi-Fi phone, this one. And as I was sitting in a conference in Barcelona and then at meetings in London, I could make all of my calls on Wi-Fi on this phone as I would dial any number in the United States. It was not an international long-distance call. It was not through an application I had to download. It was through the dialer in this phone. Every call that was made to me was delivered as a normal call, as if I was sitting in my office. And in my office, I use voice over Wi-Fi as well. So the thing is that service providers, and this service providers can introduce a better service. And when I looked at the assets I had available to me as I was in Europe 2 weeks ago, my first choice was voice over Wi-Fi from my mobile service provider. The second choice would have been Skype, because the third choice is dealing with high international roaming charges for minutes of use. And that's a typical consumer behavior when people are traveling internationally. Today, they will use an over-the-top service because it's cheap and free. But if service providers offer a better service, as these guys are doing, consumers will use the service. And that's one of the things that we need to understand, and we can show you how to introduce that in a very simple way, as we've done for these guys. As we talk with service providers, what we're hearing is, here are some of the things that people are looking for and the things that we need to deliver as an industry to compete with over-the-top. There are incremental functionality that over-the-top applications deliver that we can integrate into a service provider offering that will allow you to offer something to your customers that is better than they can get from downloading an application on the web. So, a big part of it is about brand loyalty, brand awareness, about recapturing the mind share with the consumer. We see with LTE and with the very fast HSPA networks the opportunity to evolve to one technology based on IMS and the application servers that run on IMS, using whatever architecture, whether it's deployed in your central offices or data centers, or it's introduced on a cloud-based architecture. Today, you don't have to wait for LTE to really get started. Voice over Wi-Fi is a very good service that can be offered today, and messaging, the rich messaging over Wi-Fi, can be offered today. So in the future, the whole infrastructure can be used to deliver things like video as well. And part of it that we see as opportunities is really to integrate some of the capabilities that are in the network, especially around quality of service, to enhance some of the over-the-top applications, and work with them cooperatively where those are services that consumers really want, but you can make them work better on your network. So the things that we have looked at are, well, we talk about the next generation, but there's capital required to get into the next generation before you can offer those services. So part of it is how do you reduce cost to deliver the current services for voice? The second part of it is how do you acquire those new services in a cost-effective way? And the way we have implemented our solutions really are around minimizing the time to market, the risk, and the investment necessary to really get that first customer on the network and delivering a service to them. We've really worked at making this integration with the three existing 3G networks a very seamless one, so you don't have to go and upgrade all of that 3G network before you offer service to the first person. Right? And that's a big part of getting over that hurdle to the next generation of services. So in a bit more detail, we'll talk about the two things at the top. A mobile cloud suite, which is our current generation of rich communications that can be offered to consumers today based on a cloud implementation where we are hosting that in our data center and are offering a white label service that you can use. And the second part of it is voice over mobile broadband. Collectively, voice over LTE, voice over Wi-Fi, and in the future, as the industry matures, voice over HSPA, we believe will be a big part of it as well. We offer a number of other things. Earlier this year, we talked about EIR. We are a very mature SMS provider as well, and then we do things like Rich Communication Suite and Rich Messaging Server that offer a number of services and a few other things in there like Presence. But we'll focus on the top two. So, as I said, Mobile Cloud Suite is a cloud-based solution coupled with a white label client that we provide with the service. It can be branded as your brand so that you get the awareness with the customer, the mind share. The things that it does, well, let's take a look at this video.
Introducing Mobile Cloud Suite, a white label mobile app for operators to launch rich communication services. With MCS, everything is tied to the phone number. Chat with dynamic notifications. Take and share photos and video without leaving the app. Add friends for a group chat, even if the recipient doesn't have MCS. Share locations and contacts. Save the group to easily chat again. Use MCS to talk to people that are using Facebook Chat, Google Chat, or Skype. Share files. Enrich the conversation with emoticons. Start a video call with the tap of a button. Easily place a voice call. Or record and send a voice message. With MCS, conversations are stored in the cloud. Mobile Cloud Suite, delivering a rich communications experience.
So now we have most of this running. Video is not integrated yet, but most of the rest of it is, and I can show that to you because we have it running today on phones like this one over HSPA, LTE, and Wi-Fi, and much of it can run over eVideo as well. Video would be a bit challenging over eVideo, but the rest of it should be just fine over eVideo. For anyone who wants to see it live on the phone, I'm around all day today and tomorrow, as is Mark. We can show it to you and show you what can be done with something like this. Now, why don't I, in the interest of time, I've said quite a bit here, and I will stop here for a moment and see if there are any questions.
Des, can you hear me okay? So just as a note of interest, this session is being livecast by RCR Wireless News. So as you ask your questions, if you don't mind, speak up a bit. So I think we've got one question in the audience.
Describe your network as this one. I can talk loud.
Yeah, I can repeat the question. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. You described the network as a hosted solution. Your client is the client. Did you develop the client as well, or is that something that is outsourced elsewhere and then brought in for white labeling? When you talk about the client, does it only work with your network, or can it be white labeled for other networks?
Okay, so the question is describe the network and then describe the client and what we did with the client. Okay, so the network is a rich messaging server implemented in a data center in Dallas, out of which we're supporting customers globally right now for our early adopters program. It can be replicated either in service providers' data centers, or for folks who want to have it hosted out of one of our data centers, we can replicate it regionally around the world. There are three servers really in there. There is a rich messaging server, an aggregation gateway, and an XDMS server for some of the things we need to do with addressing. The interfaces today are web interfaces, so RESTful interfaces. So it doesn't require IMS in any part of this. Now the client side of it, we have worked with a supplier to get the client developed. Today we have a client developed for the Android smartphones, and it works on Android 2.3 and 4.0. We are in process of getting iOS clients and tablet clients both for iOS and for Android, and starting with 4.0 for the Android clients. It works with our server. The kinds of services we're delivering are RCS type services. In the future, as RCS matures, what we would expect is that the service can either be changed to be an RCS type service with any RCS client, but that market is not yet mature to the point that that's there. Though we do have an RCS implementation. We've been working with third-party RCS vendors, client vendors, to make that a seamless service. Okay.
Any other questions from the audience? Well, one of the questions that I had was, as RCS matures, how does the carrier avoid becoming an orphan if they deploy MCS today?
Oh, thanks, Jeff. So, as I was saying, the kinds of services are MCS type of services. Mobile Cloud Suite with this client. For devices that have this client today, there would be no need for an operator to upgrade that set of customers to RCS. What we would do is have the network-to-network interfaces that would allow our MCS implementation of the messaging server to talk to the RCS implementation of the messaging server, whether it's our RCS server or somebody else's RCS server, at the network-to-network level, so that at the client level the applications look quite seamless if it's an RCS client on one phone in some other network, and MCS here. As new devices get introduced, if you're moving towards RCS, then the new devices would have an RCS client, whether it's a downloaded client or an embedded client, so that the new customers will have RCS. The existing customers can continue with the application that they're accustomed to, and you don't lose anything.
Any other questions before we move? This is not working, so ask your question.
Is this completely running on IMS, or you mentioned REST API, so that becomes independent of IMS, but you also mentioned XDMS. So are you talking about a presence server and an IMS client with a SIP user agent talking to a server, which is an application server?
So is it, you're asking if it's based on IMS? So MCS is not based on IMS. It's based on web interfaces. Okay, and it's all web interfaces. RCS, of course, is IMS based. And that's the fundamental difference. And the thing that we looked at was service providers will implement IMS when they have a fundamental need to do something for an application, whether it's VoLTE or RCS or something like that. Right? Before that, there is still we believe, pressing need for service providers to offer differentiated services today. And MCS is our attempt to provide to service provider customers an opportunity for them to offer an incremental service today that they can gain brand awareness or enhance brand awareness and offer something incremental to their customers without having to first implement IMS just to do this. Right? Yeah. Bob has a question.
Question then, what is it that anchors this then to the carrier versus someone else on an over-the-top basis?
The single identity with the phone number. You own the phone number. Customers know their phone number. They know how they've been using phone numbers all along. It is really about integrating the service with the single identity that you control.
Yeah, well, as a follow-on to that, your video referenced some branding opportunities. So
yes,
the phone number, but can you you talk a little bit about the branding and being
Yeah,
able to take
so skinning the application is something that we will do for customers, right? Because it's not our brand that needs to be out there; it's your brand that needs to be out there. Right. Yes.
As a carrier, I would like to see what is your opinion in regard to making money. Because a lot of things have been said, and where many carriers here are concerned is how do we make money with a solution like yours?
So there are two aspects to it. One part of it is today you're offering messaging services that SMS or things like that, whether it's separate or bundled in with a service. That's some set of values to the end user. For something like this, we see opportunities to offer workgroup solutions for small, medium businesses and those kinds of things that would allow you to offer a service tied in with a higher bundle of services. So if you're offering things like tiered services, like some operators in the United States offer $35, $45, $55 services, depending on the client, depending on the phone, the services offered on it, and those kinds of things. And this is one of those things where we see offering something that's incremental to SMS and MMS would allow you to position it as a higher end service versus the other types of services that are being offered today.
And let me say one thing to that, if you don't mind. As Madden articulated that the curve, the decline of SMS and some of the messaging revenues that you're seeing is steepening. This will slow that decline a little bit for you, whereas you can't charge as much anymore for SMS as you used to, or some messaging features. This is an upsell, an opportunity for you to slow that decline a little bit while you capture the experience. As they're using more and more data and it's tasking more and more on your network, this is an opportunity for you to get some of that back to control that experience and that brand awareness. So it can lessen the decline that we'll see in traditional messaging revenues.
Now, I believe we have on the thumb drives we'll be giving out today a white paper that we are just publishing that talks about some of the opportunities of how to position this and things like that, right? So there is in the materials you have as a handout today a new white paper. It's a white paper written by Monica Polini. We work closely with her to look at what those potential revenue opportunities are looking like. And Mark will talk now about the voice part of it, right? And we can come back to some of that in terms of revenue opportunities there.
Next up, Mark Gardner, who's VP of Sales, is going to talk about voice over mobile broadband.
Thank you. Again, my name is Mark Gardner. I don't talk as fast as Madden, and I'm also not as smart, but don't tell him I said that. I am going to talk to you a little bit about the voice component, voice over mobile broadband. That's kind of a phrase that we use to capture voice over LTE, voice over Wi-Fi, and voice over HSPA. So we've talked a little bit about how to make maybe a little incremental money as we get to high-speed data solutions and services, compete, or as I like to say, embrace over-the-top solutions and make them your own. I'm going to talk a little bit about ways to save money, and traditionally what I'm going to talk about is our voice over mobile broadband solutions. What is VoLTE? What's required? What's the customer experience? What do you have to do to support it? Well, for the end user, the experience is pretty much the same. There's an integrated client, or even in some instances a downloadable client. They won't notice any differences traditionally, except for improvements. In a wideband VoLTE solution, voice over LTE has a faster call setup and teardown time, and it is also a higher voice experience, a richer voice experience with HT voice. So what else will they notice? Well, voice over LTE in a network is traditionally a telephony application server. We'll call it a TAS that's in the network, and that supports your call features, your call single number support, features traditionally associated with a voice network. But it can also be used to support video features, video calling, video chats in the network as well. So that's what's in the network, and then traditionally you'll see an IMS network to support VoLTE. But the IMS component is generally there for what's called voice call continuity, or VCC. So if you have a voice over LTE call and you want to hand it off to a 3G or 2G network, voice call continuity, you'll need an IMS component to do that per the standards. Now, I'm not going to go into in my presentation a lot about CS fallback or some of those things. I can talk to you in greater detail about how that works and where we are with the standards bodies and supporting voice calls from 4G to 3G and back. But I will talk a little bit about what we've seen deployed to date and what some of the operators' test cases are involving that. There are solutions today, though, to deploy voice over LTE or voice over Wi-Fi or other solutions that do not require IMS in the network. Mavenir has solutions that support what is needed without an operator or carrier needing to deploy an IMS network, which can be costly and time-consuming. So Mavenir supports a solution that will cap your investment in your 3G network and provide you with a faster time to market for voice over mobile broadband. So let's talk a little bit about what that means and what we've seen to date. As you might have heard or we mentioned, whoops, did I go 1, 2 slides too many? As Matt mentioned earlier, we are the provider for voice over LTE for Metro PCS. So we beat another deployment of voice over LTE to be the first global commercialized voice over LTE solution with Metro PCS. We're very proud of our work with Metro PCS to that end, and it was quite an endeavor for us to do together. So the benefits of voice over mobile broadband and why carriers would consider voice over LTE or mobile broadband. First of all, better quality of voice. Packet voice also is cheaper to deploy per MOU, if you want to look at it that way, than circuit-based. Somewhere on an order of magnitude of 4 times more effective and cheaper to deploy. But it's not just voice over LTE. Voice over Wi-Fi is a very feasible and realistic solution for operators today. Matt mentioned that we have provided here domestically a carrier-grade voice over Wi-Fi solution. He referenced using it overseas. That's available today with a large service provider here in the United States. And one of the things that I would want to tell my carrier friends here at CCA is that voice over Wi-Fi is available to you now. As you have a 3G network and you're maybe waiting on a maturation on a 4G network or an ecosystem for you to have, today you can deploy voice over Wi-Fi. What would that do for you? Well, first of all, it would provide good in-building penetration. Where Matt and I happen to work today in Richardson, Texas, doesn't matter what service provider, we cannot get in-building penetration in our office. It's just next to impossible, which is ironic given that we're a telecommunications provider, a company. So I have to use voice over Wi-Fi in my office, and it works fantastic. But also, it's not just the in-building penetration and utilization, it's roaming, as Madden mentioned. For carriers today, it is a wonderful opportunity for providing your subscribers with an opportunity to roam. Whether you're at a Starbucks or in Berlin or just down the street, there's a great opportunity for voice over Wi-Fi calling. Thirdly, it can offload traffic on your network. This is the savings part we're talking about. As you do go towards 4G LTE and you talk about het nets and things of these natures you've heard about in the previous shows and this show, one of the things that you'll begin to deploy is a mix of Wi-Fi and small pico and femtocell solutions. And voice over Wi-Fi works great in a HetNet solution as well, for you to be able to offload traffic off of your network, especially if there are spectrum constraints in your network, especially if you would like for your consumers to use the data solutions in a Wi-Fi mode. They can make voice calls as well. At the 4G Americas conference in the fall of last year, it was stated that 67% of all iPad usage is on the living room sofa. Well, most living rooms have Wi-Fi. What if you could take that tablet and capture and make a voice call from it for your subscribers? It is possible with a downloadable client for you to offer now Wi-Fi voice services to customers who traditionally do not have your voice service. If you are selling tablets and data devices in your network and they are Wi-Fi enabled, or if you want to get a carrier branded experience on a tablet or something of that nature, they can, from you, with a voice over Wi-Fi solution, download a downloadable client and begin to offer voice over Wi-Fi on non-traditional voice solutions. It extends the reach of your experience, it offloads traffic, and it enriches your customers' solutions as well. Voice over HSPA is a solution that we also support if there's a market demand, and we've done the tests and solutions for that as well. So what the key with voice over mobile broadband is this. Madden alluded to this earlier. And my house in Plano, Texas is a classic example. Subscribers' loyalty is moving away from the service provider and more towards the device and the application. When I mentioned my home, I'm party of 5 at the Gardner household. One is 6-month-old, so we won't count her yet as a mobile user, although I'm sure some industry analysts have counted her as a penetration rate statistic. But there are 4 wireless cell phones in my house. I am the only one who knows who my service provider is. The other 3 people in my house, they only know what the device is and what applications they use. And if you pulled them aside today and asked them, who does Daddy write a check to every month, they can't tell you. So when I'm talking about voice over mobile broadband, it's also important that that solution support what you carriers have done for years and done better than anybody else, and that's provide high quality, high availability voice solutions. Voice over mobile broadband is the same for you to extend across multiple devices and screens with simultaneous activations and utilizations, simultaneous logins, and synchronized across your solutions, but make it transparent to the subscriber. Now, if you're like me, you're not going to log into 5 or 6 or 7 different things to get your voice solution. What we have offered on voice over LTE and solutions is we've made it transparent to the customer. What happens is that when they launch a voice call, whether from their address book or a return call or from an application, it pulls up the dialer no different than what they have experienced with the traditional cellular call, whether that's voice over Wi-Fi or voice over LTE. So to the customer, it must be transparent. They can't tell the difference. They don't need to, they should never know the difference. 1, it might confuse them, and 2, they're used to you, the carrier, providing them voice service. I don't care what anybody else says. Voice is still the killer app in every network. So it must be the same experience for them. It must be supported with QoS. It must be voice over LTE or voice over voice over Wi-Fi is a little bit different, but voice over LTE must be chargeable, billable. It must be supported your back office solutions. And so what we have implemented with voice over LTE is any device, any client to get started. So let me show you how we did it. Let me show you how we got started. That's it. Okay, I know that's an eye chart, and that's a lame joke on our part. But the point of this diagram is this. Voice over LTE, for instance, has many touch points in the network as well. It is, in our early deployments, it is not as simple as just a box that processes packets. If you think about what all voice touches in your network and the delivery of quality voice across a network, there's a lot that had to be done. Mavenir found ourselves initially being systems integrators within our deployments to validate the integrity of the voice end to end. There's a lot of client integration involved too, and for those us carriers, the carriers out here in CCA, it's too difficult for you to have to go out and work with every handset manufacturer and device client manufacturer to validate that voice as well. What Mavenir has done is made a very simple solution that works across the OSs and the carrier's network to validate the integrity of the voice in such a way that it does not disrupt what you've been doing today on your 3G network and provide a fast time-to-market solution. So, and there was an easier way for you to do it than traditional voice integration with multiple carriers, multiple solutions, and multiple devices. So here's what we would recommend to our CCA friends in the room. If you're at 3G now, 2G or 3G, we would suggest that you get started with voice over Wi-Fi. Save a little network offload, get your customers used to an IP-based experience, get them used to a voice over mobile broadband world, as you move towards LTE. If you're already at LTE, and you may say, well, I don't know if there's an ecosystem for me or not to support voice over LTE, we would love to talk to you about that ecosystem and how to get started. A lot of the clients are embedded and can be embedded in the devices, but clients can also be downloaded for voice over mobile broadband. I mentioned that earlier. Additionally, there is the what Mavenir brings to the table with what Madden talked about, MCS solutions. What Mavenir has deployed is integrated voice over mobile broadband solutions integrated within that MCS experience. So think about you as a consumer. The video that Madden showed earlier, would you want to log into multiple screens just to make a voice call from that? If it's not embedded, you won't do it. What we have integrated and provided is a integrated voice over mobile broadband, voice over Wi-Fi, or voice over LTE solution that resides within that experience you saw earlier, so that the customer does not have to log into multiple attempts. The login is the customer's phone number. The address book is the same that's in the phone. Nothing changes for the customer. Now, you've heard us talk about putting these solutions in a data center. This is IP. There is no bearer on this. This is service level. So it can be in a data center hosted in the cloud at our center, at your center. It's not like circuit-based voice where there was a round-trip delay that had to be concerned with. This could be hosted at a central location because I'm not carrying any of the bearer traffic in this solution. And then if you're the carrier that says, man, I want it within my switch room, I want to be able to kick it and see the lights flashing and things of that nature, it can go in your data center as well. It doesn't have to be in ours. What we talk about for competitive carriers is, listen, I'm a sales guy. I would love to sell you a system configured 1-to-1 for every subscriber in your network, but I know that the adoption rate for these takes time, right? If you achieved a 10% penetration rate in year one, I think we'd all say yay. But why buy a system that's configured for 100% penetration rate? What we're offering is a hosted solution to allow you to grow it until such time you have the economies of scale to own your own if you so desire. So Mavenir has experience in solving time-to-market solutions to be the integrator. We were the world's first deployed voice over LTE solution. And I must tell you that there were challenges with that. There were things that were never thought of with regards to jitter, with regards to QoS, with regards to billing and charging and CALIA and E911 and all the things that have to take place. These are also the same on voice over Wi-Fi. There were challenges with regards to single radio, SRVCC voice call continuity, or dual radio. What about the cell edge? Do we hand off or maintain the voice over LTE call? We went through all these test cases to provide a very solvable solution. And I challenge you, when you do look at voice over mobile broadband, to pick a partner who has solved these challenges already. We have the voice over LTE, the voice over Wi-Fi, the RCS solutions. We've worked with multiple device manufacturers and operating systems. If you have a client integrator that you work with, we can work with those as well. And that's really the strength, because the worst thing in the world that could happen was somebody sell you a box and say good luck, and then you become the integrator. That has been a challenge for competitive carriers for a while now, right? Is getting the full mature ecosystem to support your marketplace. Our solutions are made such that to take a lot of that risk out of the equation for you. We mentioned earlier, I would recommend that you strongly consider voice over Wi-Fi as a way to save money. And then migrate that to voice over LTE. The same telephony application server that would support voice over Wi-Fi supports voice over LTE. So it's a one-time investment from that standpoint. In summary, because I want to leave time for questions, Madden mentioned earlier that listen, let's be honest. A lot of people in here may not care or may not notice or may not worry that over the top is impacting you. I understand. And a lot of the rate plans for data today are charging. Right? The more bits you use, the more money you make. There's a lot of money. I'm not going to argue with you. There's a lot of money to be made being a dumb pipe for now. But if you think back about voice and SMS and other applications, that is a pretty steep curve in terms of being a dumb pipe. You don't have to fear over-the-top solutions. I never say compete with over-the-top. I say embrace them and make them better. So let's take an example. Let's say there's a social networking site that one day decides they're going to offer video chat within their social networking site. Do we fear it? Why not take that solution and make it yours and make it better, get some brand awareness for it, get to ring the cash register while you do it, and still be relevant to your subscribers? I talk to wireline companies all the time who are looking for ways to be wireless relevant, to just protect their dial tone. These types of applications we're talking about can help a service provider, even in a wireline space, be wireless relevant. Some of you in the room here today have more than just wireless networks. You offer cable TV and set-top. You offer wireline. Some of these applications are a good way for you to extend the reach of your service beyond just it's fixated on a smartphone, and offer it to non-traditional wireless customers and get some brand awareness for it. So don't fear the over-the-top. Embrace it. Make it your own. But don't be relegated to a dumb pipe. Yes, there's money to be made in that, but for how long? And then if you'll give us a chance, we'd love to talk to you more about our business, our marketing plan, our rate plans for how we would provide this. Madden mentioned a white paper on how to monetize some of these features, and we also have white papers on we can help you with on how VoLTE will save you money in a mobile broadband space. Jeff?
So we've got about 10 more minutes left. I'd like to open up for questions. While folks are thinking about a question, I would like to comment. We had a chance this morning to meet with Ed Chow, who's Senior VP of Ops Engineering for Metro PCS, and one of the comments he made about implementing Mavenir was how pleased he was with the implementation. So maybe you could talk about time to market and what really has to happen in order for a carrier to launch your service.
Okay. So Mavenir, some would ask, okay, I like to have one throat to choke. I have a good relationship with my vendor today, and I'm a small carrier, and I need one throat to choke. I understand that. I know I look incredibly young and youthful, but I've been at this since 1992. I have the bald patch to prove it. So what Mavenir has done is introduced a solution that will cap your investment on your 3G network, and we will play the part of integrating and capping your 3G solution with a faster time to market solution on our box. Our box is not just a dumb box that's a TAS that just processes voice. We've even had to implement WIN triggers to support your legacy 2G and 3G solutions. The full stack within the 3G and 4G protocols and standards. But what makes Mavenir unique in that solution is, one, we are in the space of just providing these solutions, and that's it. I don't need to support 100 years of legacy code within your existing network. We will often look just like a serving MSC or serving HLR in your network. So it caps the investment of what you already have. But in time to market, we provide the solution with the client solution such that you bring the client that you want to the table if you have your own clearing, and we will clear it through us, and you don't have to clear it through this end-to-end solution you may have over here for your RAN and your core, and this end-to-end solution you may have over here, and trying to make those work together. What we do is we sit in the middle and provide the solution that's simpler and easier for you to support today and not have to play this game.
Yeah, I think the bigger question there is for a competitive carrier, where do you spend your money? Are you going to spend your money on ENODs, subsidized handsets, or are you going to spend a lot of money on a ball pack core, right? And I've attended several OEM user conferences where they've talked about some of the carriers in this room perhaps are offering hosted ball pack and core solutions, but it comes down to where do you invest your money, which is a great segue to my next question. If people, what do you see in terms of carriers if they use your hosted solution, where are they then investing their money?
Okay. So the question is if they were to come to Mavenir and use a hosted solution for voice over mobile broadband and MCS solutions, where? Okay. Well, as I mentioned kind of earlier, I understand that there is a growth and adoption rate for these services. It would be nice. We've achieved some studies 100% penetration rate in wireless in the United States. So one could argue that churn is just swapping customers. if you wanted to say that. So when you are implementing new mobile broadband solutions, are you adding incremental new customers or are you swapping your existing customers? So what we're offering or suggesting is that you don't need to invest in a 100% penetration rate solution. Grow it as you grow the penetration rate, and invest in, for you, ways to offload traffic off of your network and get incremental revenue as Moore's law is in effect exponentially in your network. One study showed that if you've been, and I know some of you, I've known you for years, if you study in any trend in technology, you'll see a meteoric rise and then a decline and then a pickup again. That pickup is about your 5 or 6 to 7 of any trend, and then it drops sharply. Does anybody know what that second hit is? It's when the components or the pieces within a network, like a handset or device, become music for the masses. They become cheaper so that everybody can adopt them. I think about, like, years ago, you remember the Motorola Q smartphone, right? I was so envious of everybody I saw walking around with these neat devices, and then I finally got one, and I went to all my friends and said, look what I got, and they're like, Gardner, I had one of those 2 years ago. You're not cool, and you've never been cool. So, but they become music for the masses. Smartphones used to be the road warriors, and now they're the de facto within broadband. So I get that. But one trend says that SMS has hit its second peak and is now on the sharp decline. Significantly sharp decline. How do we make that up? How do we get more revenue? If you haven't launched LTE, when you do, how much can you charge for it? Can you charge for it, or is it going to be flat rate? Within that context, how do you stay relevant when people are identifying themselves more with the device and the service than the operator? What we are suggesting is that you own the experience. When they turn on their device, let them see your name and experience. Let them communicate through your branded solution. What we're suggesting is not changing the way they communicate today, other than let them communicate through your experience. Stay relevant, and then incrementally be able to charge for that. On the voice side, to your question, drive as much cost out of the network as you can. Voice over mobile broadband does that. Now, I recognize that we're not all spectrum rich in here, and we can segregate by technology within that spectrum. So refarm spectrum. Voice over mobile broadband helps you do that. It's very, and then begin to push your customers that way towards having an IP-based experience on or off network, and then push the cost out as much as you can, such that you can maintain that curve as long as possible.
Got time for one more question?
So when you talk about Wi-Fi, voice over Wi-Fi, are you talking about offloading on native Wi-Fi networks, meaning carrier-owned, or cloud-sourced?
Great question. So I get this all the time from non-traditional wireless carriers who are looking at these solutions themselves, right? So there's multiple options. Carriers have talked about wholesaling on their own organic networks, partnering with those who already have Wi-Fi networks today. There are even those operators who say, good luck, find a Wi-Fi network and make it work. So what we have seen, he showed a phone. You can come up here and look at his phone later to see who it is. I just can't say it out loud. But with this carrier, what they do is they don't specify, because they've seen that the economics make sense to utilize whatever Wi-Fi network that you find. People ask me all the time, well, voice over Wi-Fi, well, I need, what about E911, or how does it do? What does the government say about supporting that? With Wi-Fi today, you are just required to register where you normally use the Wi-Fi solution, and that's it for E911 calls. So I'm recommending all three to answer your question, because all three drives costs out of the network.
How do you manage quality if it's like a crowdsourced Wi-Fi?
Say again?
How do you manage quality, customer quality?
To take that one?
Sure. Yeah.
So basically, the client in here will determine whether the Wi-Fi is good enough for voice calls. So there are three modes on the phone. It's either everything on cellular, everything on Wi-Fi, or voice on cellular and data on Wi-Fi.
Now, are you looking at just pure RF characteristics when you it's good enough to be on Wi-Fi? Or
It tests
encryption?
the speed of the backhaul as well.
Okay. What
So it's
about
RF.
encryption?
I'm sorry.
What about encryption? Is that anything with that?
I don't know what they do for encryption.
I don't know either.
Any other questions?
So on that same note, on that same answer, just to follow on. So while you're on the Wi-Fi call, you begin on a very good Wi-Fi reception and you initiate the call on Wi-Fi and then it reduces. So your client, does it respond to that reduction in reception or switch it over?
It can. It's about the operator deployment. Today, what this operator has deployed is Wi-Fi, and if you're out of Wi-Fi, the call drops. Most Wi-Fi, well, let me say, most Wi-Fi calls are non-transient calls. If I'm in a Wi-Fi mode, I'm staying on the Wi-Fi solution. But there are now that would necessitate an IMS core to support the voice call continuity handing off from packet to circuit and back and forth. And that also would require the federation within the client to know when to do that as well. So there are client solutions that do support. So that would be on the client side on the device, as well as the IMS side on the network to support the intelligence to know I'm losing Wi-Fi or the signal is degraded to the point where I need to hand off to the cellular network. But that also, for many operators, they don't like that solution because you're actually running two radios. Now, we can talk about battery life when you talk about that.
You do need IMS for...
If you're handing off.
Yeah.
If you're handing off, yes.
Okay. Closing comments, Ben?
Closing comments? Please make sure. Closing comments. Please make sure you get on the way out from Joel at the back a thumb drive with the materials that we have. We have a couple of white papers and a few other things in there you might be interested in. And the last thing I'll say is thank you very much for attending today. We really appreciate you spending the time with us today. And we'll be around for the next couple of days. If you want to see MCS working, I can show that to you, or voice over Wi-Fi. I don't have it working here because Wi-Fi isn't turned on the phone. But we can have a chat. We'll be around for the next couple of days. And
final comment. This was live streamed onto RCR Wireless News YouTube site. Within 5 to 10 minutes, it'll be recorded and available. So by all means, share it with your friends and family and whoever else you think might be interested in your company. But thank you for joining us.